Recent news, there is tension, there are unrests, and some factories even go on fire. January 2025, Chinese New Year is up and coming. This year might be different. Are you ready? You may face a situation that your factory shuts down, promises to reopen, but it doesn't. Or your factory opens, but there are no workers back because they haven't been paid. We have been operating in China for more than 20 years. We have seen all kinds of disruptions, but there's one consistent behavior, is that what people tell you before Chinese New Year and what happens after Chinese Year, there's often a discrepancy. And I'm wondering if you have production plans that are made to produce in February, March, early April of 2025, you may want to double check with your partners whether there are any unforeseen challenges that you have to deal with. This year has major differences. We have an economic downturn which has been unprecedented in China for a very, very long time. Due to the real estate housing price decline, Chinese economy has been quite poor, and it led to a domino effect in the construction industry, where the project developers didn't pay their suppliers, their contractors didn't pay the suppliers for the materials, and the material suppliers couldn't pay the wages. And then projects got stalled. And because they got stalled, the people that bought the apartments failed to make a mortgage payment for those housings. Then the banks pulled back the funds, so the whole economy started to freeze. We have Donald Trump in the United States going ahead and promising to implement tariffs against mainland China. Now, those companies in the US that rely on Chinese sources, and that's quite a few of them, they prefer to import their goods into the US before the tariffs are hiked. Since Donald Trump is going to enter office on January 20, there was a rush to get goods into the US or before that date. Probably a lot more goods than there are people able to sell in a short time. So what does it mean? Well, it means that the order forecast after January 20 is probably very poor for many manufacturers. And if you are a factory owner and you know that you don't have many orders and you know your staff is going home for Chinese New Year, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to ask all your staff to come back on time and sit in your factory, turning their thumbs and getting paid for doing nothing? No, you won't. You will ask your staff to come back a little bit later when you have sufficient order to pay them. If you still have cash by then, well, that's another story altogether. If you placed an order to China and you paid a deposit, typically 30% for your goods, that is supposed to be produced in February and March, are you sure that they can really produce that? Are you really sure they have the staff, the material, or the subcontractors are there? I would have a second thought. So in 2024, you hear a lot of news about supply chain diversification, moving out of China. And you have many suppliers that may set up shops in Mexico, in Vietnam, in Thailand. And when is the best part to move? Probably not when you have a lot of staff around. Equipment is much easier moved when there's not too much staff around, because a worker is not stupid. When the tools are being moved, they know their jobs are being moved. So when do you move? You're probably going to do this before Chinese New Year or right after Chinese New Year. But factories do not produce their goods out of thin air. They need raw materials, they need inputs. But since a huge supply chain was built in China over the past 30 years, a lot of these raw materials still come from China. So I would like to tell you one story. We have a business with a supplier in Thailand, and he has to deliver goods in March, but he requires material from China. So I had to pay a deposit for his production in March, to be delivered in March. And we installed 3 payments. One payment in December to make sure he gets the raw material, another payment in January to make sure that he's getting ready for production, and then a final payment after delivery in March. Now, he requires to receive the material no later than end of January in order to meet the lead time of this product. So I know if the raw material has not left China by January 20, he will not be able to meet his production deadline in March. So what we're going to do, we have a plan to deal with this. And I have to make sure, I have to verify that all his raw materials are on the way. Because one raw material missing and you can't finish the product, you make a deposit and your cash is tied up. I say, we may be able to deliver in April or May or June, but that doesn't help me. Maybe April, May or maybe June. No, it's not going to work. I need the products in March, but I already know in January whether that's feasible or not, because we are auditing the suppliers and we're also auditing the lower level of the supply chain. We understand whether there's staff on site, raw materials ready, preparations being taken, staff being trained. You can't do this overnight. So every supply chain has a precursor. And if you plan for it, then you can put checkpoints in. But one thing I learned, Chinese New Year is full of uncertainties. And uncertainties, of course, there's never 100% assurance, but there's a lot of things to check on. And if you hear early February, there are certain materials missing and you need goods in March, that might be already too late. That's the message I want to send. How will it impact the world? Well, let's play a scenario. We have January 2025 now. We're going to celebrate the Chinese New Year, January 27. Most of the workers go to their families already in mid of January. Some may already have left. Now, what does it mean? Factories will have almost no products to ship in early February. One industry that's very well aware of this effect is the shipping industry, those container carriers. They know that they will have very little cargo in early February. So what they typically do is they arrange blank sailings around that time, meaning they will cancel some vessels in early February until middle February because they know there's no cargo. Well, this will create a ripple effect depending on where. About 3 weeks later in Los Angeles, 6 weeks later in Rotterdam, that the ports will go empty in the West, where most of the cargo is unloaded. So who's impacted? Well, warehouse operators, truckers that carry the product forward. That's why this year is going to be a very interesting year when it comes to supply chain management. I cannot predict exactly what is going to happen, but my gut feeling tells me there will be disruptions, there will be changes, and we have to adapt to these changes. And as there used to be often a lot of staff turnover over Chinese New Year, we tended to stabilize the supply chains in March every year in China. This year, I think our hands will be very tight. Our staff will be very, very busy on fixing the gaps in the supply chain. That's what we anticipate for this year. How about you? How's your supply chain going? Are you ready for Chinese New Year and the time afterwards? Do you have the resources on the ground to fix the problems that may occur? If not, you may reach out to us, but better do it quickly because we only have limited resources and we are here in Taiwan, but our staff is often flying into South China or East China to deal with the suppliers and subcontractors, support qualifications of raw materials, or even support the gradual move to Southeast Asia, where the main factories have moved. But then again, also a move of production requires an enhanced quality control procedures that need to be taken care of, and our staff is trained to do exactly that. So if you are interested to learn more, please visit our website, www.celinius.com, or drop me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll try to find a time to schedule a meeting with you to see how we could help you and where you are at this moment in terms of getting ready for the Year of the Snake 2025. If this video provided value to you, please do not fail to subscribe and hit the bell button. And in the next video, we want to talk about the Donald Trump effect and its impact on supply chains. So I'm going to start the video with this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.